السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hello, Hassan. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Main, how are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So inshallah we'll probably start in about 1 or 2 minutes, yeah.
Jazakallah khair.
Give it time for
But
people to come.
why you start that early? It's Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, it is good actually to start early. Do you have like a full day program, like a family gathering or something like community gathering?
Yeah, we have an event this afternoon, to mark the quote unquote the end of the first one of parking lot project.
Oh, mashallah.
We just finished the parking lot. I mean, half of it.
Mm.
So then we are waiting to finish the remaining half.
Mashallah.
Whenever we have money, inshallah.
Mashallah, mashallah. Allah puts barakah in your efforts all.
Amin, Sheikh.
So should I present for let's say 45 minutes and then an answer?
Yeah, inshallah, about 45, or if you want to go to an hour, then we have this Q and answer for about 45 or 30 minutes, inshallah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I think I need to share my screen.
Yeah, well, after we start,
Sure.
after I open, then inshallah I'll give it to you.
Okay.
So that you can share your screen. Do you have a co-chair here? Okay. And also, Shemain, can we record this?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Alhamdulillah. Pak Radit.
Was that?
Yeah, silakan. I'm sorry.
When do you want to start?
Inshallah,
you want
right
to give it a couple minutes, or you want to start now?
Sure. Inshallah, right now is good, Paika. And inshallah, more Jamaah is coming. We make advertisement to everyone, not just Indonesians.
Okay, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarika lahu wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Ya ayyuhalladzina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Rabbi israh li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli, amma ba'd. Brother and sister, rahimakumullah, on behalf of Masjid Istiqlal, I would like to welcome all of you. And as usual, first of all, let us thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the ni'mah and rahmah which He Almighty bestowed on us. And also, we thank for the opportunity to virtually meet this morning and follow the lecture by Dr. Main Alqudah. Salam and salawat also we sent to our beloved Prophet Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to his family and to all of his sahaba. So inshallah, we will ask Dr. Main to give his lecture on Zakat, and for about 45 minutes to 60 minutes, however the Sheikh like it. And then we use the remaining time for Q and answer. And inshallah, hopefully Sheikh Main Alqudah, can focus on, the zakah that is, very close to us. For example, our wage, our property, and if we get a bonus, for example, from the office, how are we going to treat it, or how we are going to treat this stimulus that that we just got from the government? Is it part of like it should be treated as a wage, or is it different, or even inheritance? How are we going to pay the zakah on it? Is it the same 2.5%, or a different percentage? So inshallah, we would like to know all of this, and hopefully Sheikh Main Al-Quda can focus on that, or if not, then we will ask this question inshallah and get the answer from the Sheikh. So, Shia, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to you, inshallah. But before, I need to, I think, make you the presenter so that you can send. So I'll make you the host. So now you can share your screen share.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله لا شريك له لا إله إلا هو وإليه النشور أصبحنا على فطرة الإسلام وكلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين اللهم إنا أصبحنا منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتم علينا نعمتك وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة اللهم ما أصبح بنا من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك فلك الحمد ولك الشكر يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. Respected brothers and sisters, the leadership and the community members of Masjid al-Istiqlal, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good morning everybody. We have been meeting over and over, alhamdulillah. I'm not a stranger to your community. Actually, I consider myself as a community member in Masjid al-Istiqlal. I've been visiting with your masjid several times. We have been meeting in several occasions, even since I would say 2010 maybe, and from that time on, I've been in touch with the Indonesian, Malaysian community. I still remember Brother Zulfan Effendi. I'm not sure if he's still around in the community or he left a different community, but actually he was my contact person, and the one who coordinates events and programs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him and reward you all the best. Allahumma ameen. This is not a new topic to you. I've been presenting this particular topic more than once, if I recall, since 2010 until today. Of course, always there is some update in the information. It's all about zakah for American Muslims. Because of the time constraint, I would just limit myself to up to 1 hour, maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour, and then inshallah we'll open the floor for question and answer. Let me start with the first topic that confuses people. Since I live here in this society, I do pay income tax to the government. Would that be sufficient, or I still have to pay zakatul mal? No, this is insufficient. You need to consider both income tax to the government, because you live here in this society, regardless of your religion. Any single individual who holds or has a social security number does work, whether like self-employed or a business person or employee on 1099, on W2, whatever the form might be, makes money more than I think $600 or $700 a year, then he has to report to the IRS the amount that he makes, for taxation purposes. He might pay tax, he might break even, he might receive money from the government, but he has to file his tax or report his tax to the authority, to the IRS. Unlike Zakatul Mal, you pay Zakatul Mal not because you live in the USA. You pay Zakatul Mal because you are a Muslim. Whether you live in Jordan or in Malaysia or in Indonesia or in the USA, a Muslim is a Muslim. You pay Zakatul Mal because you are fulfilling one of the pillars of Islam. Some differences here. Recipients of zakah are divinely designated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Those 8 different categories that you all know have been mentioned in the Quran. While usually the taxpayers or the tax money is generally paid to enable functions of the state. So they are not limited to certain categories, right? The 911 service, the parks, the streets, the highways, the public school system, the Medicare and Medicaid, and different like federal and state programs are funded by your and my tax money. So everybody pays, tax in a way or another, benefits from the tax money, or part of the tax money that he pays actually, is returned to him. But when it comes to Zakatul Mal, usually, you do not benefit from the zakah that you pay. You are either a zakah payer or you break even, or otherwise you are a zakah recipient. If you pay Zakatul Mal, you are not supposed to benefit from Zakatul Mal. It goes like one way. It cannot come back to you, of course, with some exceptions. Zakah calculation, you go with the remaining wealth. In 2020, you made $100,000. Now, for tax filing, you report to the IRS the $100,000 that you have made back in 2020. For tax calculation purposes, you do not have, you should not actually report the $100,000. You should start your zakah calculation with the remaining wealth. Okay, if in 2020 you made 100,000, you spent $80,000 before the beginning of the month of Ramadan, then you start your math, you start your calculation with the 20,000 and not with the 100,000. This is what I mean by zakah is paid on one's remaining wealth. Some other differences that tax rate is progressive. We have like different brackets, right? The more money you make, the higher the tax rate will be. But zakat al-mal actually is a fixed one. Zakat rate is a fixed one. If you have $10,000 zakatable money, or you have $10 million, the zakat rate will be 2.5%, no more and no less. Zakah rate ranges between 2.5%, which is the most important category that we need to pay attention to, while zakah might increase or go up to the 20% in case of treasury troves or zakat al-rikaz, which is nowadays interpreted as oil and gas business, mining business. If you are the owner of the oil and gas company or the oil and gas business, then you are the one who's supposed to pay 20% as zakah. And this is not something that is agreed upon, by the way. If you are the owner of the mining company, mining business, then you are the one who's supposed to pay 20%. If you work for oil and gas company, then your zakah is only 2.5% from the salary that you have received. What are the zakatable wealth? What are the categories that you need to consider for paying zakatul mal? The first and the most important category, as you see here in the slide, is the personal zakatable wealth. By personal, I mean it is a category that has nothing to do with your profession, with your career, whether you are a self-employed employee, jobless, laid off, okay, live nowadays on what do you call it, unemployment benefit, whatever your working status might be, any cash that you have, any money actually that you have, as you see in the slide, cash in hand, whether that cash is a salary that you receive from your employer, whether it is a bonus that you got, whether it is an income tax return that you have received from the IRS, inheritance that you inherited from one of your family members, cryptocurrency. Here you go. Cryptocurrency is a kind of money. Let me just pause here a little bit. Is it recommended to deal with cryptocurrency to start with? My answer and the answer of our Fiqh Council, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, is no. Stay away from cryptocurrency because, number one, it's a decentralized currency where there is no official financial authority behind it. Stay away from cryptocurrency because there is no justifiable, reason behind the significant fluctuation of the market value of cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin here. The market value or the purchasing power, if you wish, of cryptocurrency goes up and down significantly, and that fluctuation actually is unjustified or unjustifiable. We do not know the reason behind it. And number three, not to say that some people use cryptocurrency for money laundering purposes, which is of course illegal. Our official position in AMJA that because of the significant gharar means ambiguity, means uncertainty, means vagueness, right? We highly recommend Muslims to stay away from cryptocurrency business, not to deal with it. However, if you decide to, or if you are already involved in this business and you do have cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, in particular here in the US, then whatever you have actually is zakah money. Whatever you have actually is cash. And since it is cash, it is zakatable. You have to pay zakah on it. Even the stimulus check that you have been receiving for the first, for the second, for the third time from the government since Trump all the way until today, we have received, I think, three different checks. So all these kinds of money are counted as income from a zakah perspective. They are wealth, they are income. See here, if you remember, we said zakah is paid on one's remaining wealth. Okay, so this is actually a kind of wealth that you need to consider paying zakah on it. Whether that money is cash in hand or in bank account, in your checking account, your saving account, although you are not supposed to have a saving account to start with, even if it is in the form of stocks, okay, in the stock market, that's to be considered, and money held in retirement and pension accounts, everything is included. I'm not saying here that your retirement account, your 401k, is zakatable in full. No, this is incorrect. I'm saying that this category of the retirement account, okay, retirement account is zakatable. How to calculate zakah on it? Okay, what percentage of that account is zakatable? That's a different discussion, right? So this is the most important category. The second one is what is called the business zakatable wealth. This actually has a lot to do with your career, with your profession. You might have trading goods, okay? You have a car dealership business, you have a grocery store. All the groceries, all the chips and the snack and any food items that you have in your store are counted as zakatable wealth. Merchandise, goods, commodities, anything that is for sale, whether it is a display item, whether it is inventory, like a stock item, whatever the category might be, is included. If you have exploited assets, like for example, you have a rental apartment, rental house. You have a house that you do not live in. It is for rent. Okay, the money that you generate or the lease revenue of that rental property is zakatable. You have a taxi cab. You provide transportation service. The market value of the car, of the vehicle itself, is zakah exempt. But the money that you generate out of providing the service is a zakatable one. Agricultural products are to be included in full. Any kind of agricultural products, whether irrigated or non-irrigated. Livestock, whether ovine or bovine, are included. Treasury troves, as I said, oil and gas, mining business nowadays is included. Anything else that is not clearly mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, okay, as long as you make money out of it, then you have to pay zakah on it. Zakah is potentially due on all products whose sources are not zakatable. So we need to distinguish between products versus sources. If the source of the business where you generate the money is zakatable, then the product is not. If the product is zakatable, then the source of the income, okay, or the business is not zakatable. There is no way where you have to pay zakah on the product and the source simultaneously at the same time. There is a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to charge 10% for zakat al-asal, for honey from bees, right? So there is no dalil, straightforward evidence for dairy from livestock. Livestock actually is zakatable in full once you hit the nisab. If you have 30 cows or more, then you have to pay zakah. What if you have thousands or hundreds of cows and buffalo, right? And you use them for dairy product purposes. They are not for sale, not for like slaughtering and selling meat, but they are for dairy products. You don't have to pay zakah on the cattle in this very particular scenario. Rather, you pay zakah on what? You pay zakah on the profit that you make from the dairy product. Same for the eggs from poultry. Poultry, like chicken, for example, is zakah exempt, but you pay zakah on the profit that you make from selling eggs. Silk from silkworms, and the list actually goes on and on. If the source is zakah exempt, then the product is zakatable. If the source is zakah exempt, then the product is zakatable. If the source is zakah exempt, then the product actually is zakatable. Something actually has to be charged zakat al-mal, either or. And when we say either or, it doesn't mean that we go by our own like preference or our own desire. No, we go with the evidence, with the principles of fiqh, okay, or the fiqh maxims that govern this kind of fiqh, which is fiqh al-zakah. Now, what is to be excluded? Okay, non-zakatable wealth. All the food that you store at home for consumption purposes. I forgot to say, I'm sorry. Let me just go back here to the most important category. Whether this cash that you have is for consumption purposes, right? Like for spending purposes, for saving purposes. Saving, I mean, you did not perform Hajj, you want to go for Hajj, you are saving for Hajj. Still zakatable. You are still single and you want to get married, so you are saving for your wedding, right? That is zakatable. Saving that money for the education of your kids whenever they go to college, right? That's still zakatable. Saving this money to buy a house for living, not to buy a house for investment. Still, that money is zakatable. To saving money to buy a car for your personal use, as long as you have cash money, it is zakatable. Not only that, you have to consider paying zakah on an annual basis. Every single year, you have to pay zakah on it. Moving on, non-zakatable wealth, anything that for your personal use, like the food that you have at home, the clothing, the residence, even if you have more than one house, as long as the second house overseas in Malaysia, for example, is not for sale, is not for rent, it's exclusively for your personal use whenever you go there, vacation, even if it is occupied by your parents or by your family members as a help, as a support, without charging them rent, then it is actually zakah exempt. Transportation, the cars that you have are to be exempted. Animals, if they did not hit the threshold or the minimum amount, are zakah exempt, even if you have them for business purposes. If you have cows, less than 30 cows, up to 29, you are exempt. Sheep or goat, up to 39, you are exempt, right? And on and on. All the tools, the devices, the instruments, the machineries that you use to run your business are zakah exempt. Okay, the building itself that you work as a consultant, as a medical doctor, as a surgeon, as an accountant, engineer, IT consultant, whatever the profession, lawyer, right? All the devices, all the tools, all the instruments that you have to run your business, but they are not for sale, are zakah exempt. Agricultural land, for example, if you are involved in farming business, since you have to pay zakah on the agricultural products, then the land itself actually is exempted. Property and public trust, anything that is not privately owned, is to be exempted. So hospital, for example, for the government or for the county are exempt. Orphanage, nursing homes. Why I'm saying governmental nursing homes? Because nursing home might be a private business. Okay, hospital actually might be a private business. If a group of doctors or investors have their own hospital and they make hundreds of thousands of dollars profit, then definitely the money that they make is zakatable, while the hospital itself and the equipment and the devices and the instrument that they use to run their business is zakat exempt. Any endowment for Masjid Istiqlal, if you have, for example, some rental properties, okay, designated as a waqf for Masjid al-Aqsa, which means that Masjid al-Istiqlal, which means that the lease revenue that you generate from that piece of land or like this apartment complex is designated for Masjid Istiqlal. If that is the case, then everything actually is exempted, because the beneficiary, which is Masjid Istiqlal, is zakah exempt, right? So anything that belongs to the masjid, anything that is designated for the masjid is zakah exempt as well. Any kind of unlawful wealth, if someone, Allah forbid, is dealing with haram, with interest, generated some money through forgery, monopoly, extortion, like taking something by force, fraud, bribery, right? That money is purely haram money. And the only way to clear your record with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to pay that amount in full to its legal owner. Except when it comes to riba, you don't have to pay it back to the borrower, okay, or the one who paid you interest. Rather, you dispose that money by giving it away in charity or putting it in the masjid, or just give it to like any individual other than your family members. Who's supposed to pay zakat al-mal? Of course, Muslim. You need to reach the nisab, which is the threshold, a minimum amount of money. The nisab nowadays is around $4,500, $4,500. Where did we get this number from? This is from the value of 85 grams of gold. 85 grams of gold, according to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is nisab with that, the threshold for gold. Gram of gold nowadays is more than $50, maybe 52, 53. So simple math, if it is only $50, 85 times 50, that is $4,250, which means that if you do have this amount as a net amount, then you have to, pay zakah. The passage of one lunar year, zakah is to be paid annually and not monthly. The status of the person who has the wealth has nothing to do with the zakatability of the money. So that zakat payer might be a minor, might be orphan, might be insane, might be mentally, challenged, right? It does not make any difference, because zakah is a financial ibadah, it's not a physical ibadah. And that's why kids do not have to fast in Ramadan, do not have to perform hajj, do not have to pray, but they have to pay zakat al-mal. Not by themselves, like through their parents or through their legal guardians or wealth managers or like financial advisors if they have any. For the wealth itself, there is another criteria: exclusive ownership. You have to make sure that you own exclusively the nisab, the $4,500. If more than one individual are sharing the nisab, okay, then your share does not reach a nisab independently. Thus, you don't have to pay zakat al-mal. Ability of growth, which means that there is a profit motive, like business plan behind owning that stock. And I'll give you an example. A house that you live in, you use as your primary residence. This is tax exempt, right? Because it's not a growable asset. You are not making money out of living in your house. If you change your mind, you leave to somewhere else and you put that house for rent, right? The lease revenue, the money that you make out of renting that house is zakatable, right? While the market value of the house is zakah exempt. And then after a while, if you change your mind and you put that, the same house, not for rent this time, but for sale. If that is the case, then the market value of the house is zakatable, even if the house stays in the market for more than 1 year and it's not sold yet. still zakatable based on the market value of the house. You can easily, see here that the same house, in the first scenario, it was completely zakat exempt. In the second scenario, you pay zakat on the rent, on the lease revenue. And in the third scenario, you pay zakat on the market value of the house. Based on what? Based on your intention and your practice as well. Based on your intention and your practice as well. Also, you have to have an access to the wealth. And that's why if you do not have an access to your pension plan, if you work for the state of Texas, for example, or for the federal government, or for the county, or for the city, right? Usually you have a pension plan in which you do not have an access to. Even if you file for humanitarian case or hardship, whatever they call it, you do not have an access to. If that is the case, then your pension plan actually is zakat exempt. If you do have an access to certain percentage of your 401k or 403, then whatever accessible is zakatable. Whatever accessible is zakatable. Do not confuse yourself, okay? Do not confuse the threshold versus the poverty line. Poverty line is the minimum standard of living. This is an economic governmental standard set by the federal government or by the state government to determine the eligibility of people receiving some monetary or non-monetary support from the government, whether federal or a state one. So not every single individual below, like under the poverty line, is an eligible zakat recipient by default. This is incorrect. Not every single individual like above the poverty line is a zakat payer. This is incorrect. You might be under the poverty line. Okay, you make just a little amount of money as an annual income, but you have 100 sheep or goat or 50 cows. Do you have to pay zakah or not? You have to pay zakah on them. Even if you are above the poverty line, you make $70,000, $80,000 a year, right? But you barely can catch up with your legitimate expenses. Maybe you have 1 or 2 kids in colleges, right? And you barely can afford their tuition fees. Sometimes you run even short. If that is proven, then you are an eligible zakat recipient. Although you make a lot of money, you make $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, but your expenses are more than your income. Your expenses, your legitimate halal expenses, are way above your income. This actually makes you faqir, believe it or not, so you can, claim zakatul mal. If different assets that you have do not constitute a nisab, then you do not have to add them up. If the agricultural products or the crops that you have do not reach a nisab, right, and the cash money do not reach a nisab, you don't have to mix them up to make a nisab, because every single category has its own nisab. If they do belong to the same category, like stocks in your IRA, not retirement account. IRA means individual retirement account. You have an account with TD Ameritrade, right? You have an account with Athena, for example, right? You just go there and you withdraw the money, or just pick up the phone and talk to Brother Yusri. I don't want to invest with Athena anymore. Give me my money. Just a matter of 2 or 3 days, you will be having your money back. So your money actually is accessible, right? Since it is accessible, then it is zakatable. If you have stocks and you have cash money, do you have to add them up together? Yes, you do, because the stocks actually could be liquidated at any time. Again, stocks outside your retirement account. If it is within your retirement account, that's different discussion. You don't have to keep up the nisab throughout the whole year long. Even at a certain spots in the calendar, you went below the nisab, it doesn't make a difference. As long as the zakat due date comes and you still have a nisab, $4,500 or more, then you have to pay zakatul mal. Salaries and professional fees. Okay, you work as an attorney, you have your own law firm, and you receive money almost on weekly, if not even on daily basis, right? Okay, do not worry about the cash flow. Do not keep track of every single payment that you receive. Whatever you want to spend. Whatever you do not need, just go ahead and deposit it in your checking account. Okay, and the zakat due date, let's say the beginning of the month of Ramadan, you need to take a snapshot. How much money you have cash in hand in your checking account that is coming from that law firm, that's your main profession, right? Your major source of income, right? Whatever you have actually is zakatable. Now, this does not mean that every single payment you receive has to stay for one complete year. Okay, that's called hawalan al-hawl, the passage of one lunar year. No, it means that the nisab that you have, the threshold, the $4,500 have to stay in your possession for one complete year. Whatever is added up to the nisab, to the threshold, takes the same rule of the nisab. The nisab is $4,500. You already established the nisab a while ago, right? Few days before the beginning of the month of Ramadan, you received the check from one of your clients, $5,000. And then one day before Ramadan, $2,000. And then 3 days before Ramadan, maybe 5,000, right? This money did not stay in your account, okay, more than just a few days, right? When Ramadan comes, do you still have to pay zakah on them? The answer is yes, because this is actually called al-mal al-mustafad, like the extra or the surplus money that has been added on top of the nisab. If the nisab is there, then actually everything added to the nisab is zakatable. I need to watch the time. Sorry. We good. Salary is the same. You don't have to pay zakah. You can, if you insist, you can deduct 2.5% from your salary, but actually you don't have to, because one of the wisdoms behind having the zakah on an annual basis is to give you enough time to receive money, to invest the money, to make profit out of that money, and from the profit you pay the zakah instead of paying zakah from the principal itself. And paying zakah on monthly basis defeats the purpose of paying zakah annually. However, if you insist in paying zakah on a monthly basis, then it's up to you. Jewelry and ornaments are not zakatable as long as the jewelry that your wife or your spouse uses is, number one, for her personal use, not for commercial purposes, for buying and selling and trading and making money. And number two, is within the average of that particular age, that particular society, that particular culture, right? That particular income class. Okay. If the average nowadays here, like within the Indonesian community, is $20,000, for example, I'm just giving random examples, then if your wife has $50,000 worth of jewelry, I would say the first 20,000 are zakah exempt, because this is what other fellow sisters have. But the surplus, the extra, actually is way above the average, then it is zakatable. So two different conditions: for the personal use, not for business, okay? And number two, within the average that other ladies, other women actually have. If those conditions are met, then the jewelry, okay, whether from gold or from silver, is not zakatable. Of course, any kind of jewelry that is not gold or silver, like diamond or precious stones, or like those different valuables, okay, diamonds, okay, minerals, precious stones, they are considered jewelry, but they are not zakatable. Of course, if your wife has way more than the average, then the extra is zakatable. Retirement fund. Retirement fund actually is different, as you see here, from the financial instruments, although what you have in your retirement fund is none but financial instruments. Why I'm having them in two different categories? Because retirement fund is a very special kind of investment because of the restrictions and limitations that you have. Retirement accounts like 401k, if you work for corporate America, of course, there are like some other accounts. It's going to be 403B if you work for non-for-profit organizations. It could be pension, could be annuity, whatever the name or the platform of the investment might be. Okay, we do have different opinions here Our position in Amjad, our Fiqh Council, is that whatever accessible in your 401k is zakatable. You have in your account in the beginning of the month of Ramadan, you found out that you have $1 million worth of investment in your 401k, right? And if you apply to Fidelity or Vanguard for a humanitarian case, okay, you are in desperate need for the money, or for hardship, sometimes they call it. You will be having an access to, let's say, 50% of your account. So far, the accessible, the withdrawable amount is $500,000. If you decide to proceed, you will not be taking home $500,000. You will be penalized, you will be charged, you will be taxed, right? So you deduct all these prescribed, penalty, prescribed tax, sometimes they call it interest, processing fees, whatever. Okay, you deducted another 50,000. Okay, so far the amount is $450,000 accessible, available. If you want to stay in the safe side, pay 2.5% zakah rate on the $450,000. If you want to go with the book without paying any extra money, you can still deduct up to 15 or even 20% from the 450,000 as fixed assets, because the stocks that you hold do not represent commodities and merchandise and goods and services in full. Rather, a certain percentage, maybe up to 15-20%, represent, what do you call it, usul thabita, fixed assets, like the building, the offices, the machineries, the cars, the devices, the instruments that the company uses to run its business. Those are zakah exempt. You can put them aside, and the net amount actually is zakatable based on 2.5%. Financial instruments outside the retirement account, most probably 99% are accessible in full. You have individual retirement account, right? You have simple investment account. You have a brokerage account. What else? Just regular account with any of those socially responsible mutual fund companies. Okay. Usually those accounts are accessible in full. Accessible in full. If you are not, well, yeah, they are accessible in full, and thus they are zakatable in full. Zakatable in full in a sense that not the total amount. No, if you decide to withdraw all the IRA, how much money you will be charged by the government, by the IRS? Okay, do your math. The net amount, the take-home amount, actually is the zakatable one. Of course, I would assume that we have stocks that belong to halal business only. So this is the first category, which is stocks, right? Stocks or shares represent ownership of a certain part of the capital of a corporation. There is something else called bonds. Bonds are certificates of interest-bearing loan. It's not an option for you to start with. I mean, you are not supposed to hold bonds, right? But if you do already, well, zakah on stocks. Okay, let's classify, okay, the practice of people into two different categories. Some people take those stocks as exploited assets, exactly like the rental property, exactly like the taxi cab that you have, which means that the principle or the asset itself or the source itself is not for sale, but you make money out of it, right? You have a rental property. The house is not for sale, but you make lease money. The lease revenue is the zakatable one. Same concept here. If you are not in the business of trading, buying and selling regularly in the stock market, then those stocks are called exploited assets. You just sleep on the stocks and you are happy with the dividend that you make every year. If that is your common practice, even if you trade it once or twice or 3 times, it doesn't negate the fact that you are not active trader in the market. If that is the case and you just sleep the whole year long on those stocks, you make some money out of them, then you need to pay zakah on the dividend, on the profit only. And regardless whether you capitalize the profit, you put it back in the account for reinvestment purposes, or you withdraw the money, it doesn't make it. You still have actually to pay zakah on it. Versus somebody else who is taking those stocks as trading assets, which means that he or she is active in the market, always like, speculating, buying, selling, and trading, watching the news. If that is the common practice, then you need to consider paying zakah on the principal and the profit as well. Zakah on bonds, the interest that you make from that bonds is a haram money. You need to dispose that money. You cannot pay zakah on it. You have to pay 100% of the amount, not 2.5%. But the principal itself, upon receiving it, is zakatable. So you need to pay zakah on the principal. You need to get rid of the interest that you generated. Some other, financial instruments, majority of them are not within our comfort zone. Majority of them. I'm not saying that all derivatives are haram, or all futures are haram, or all options are haram. I'm saying the majority, if not even the vast majority of them, are not within our comfort zone, right? If it is proven that a certain option or future or derivative is a prohibited one, then it should be treated as bonds, right? You wait until you upon the maturity of that particular financial instrument, you get rid of the interest if it is proven that this instrument actually is haram, and you pay zakah on the principal only. But if you are not positive that this financial instrument is haram, then it should be treated as stocks or as shares, and you look at it, exploited assets versus trading assets. There is no hadith that could be attributed to the Prophet ﷺ regarding zakat al-dayn, and that's why the most correct. Well, that's why the companions, differed, the tabi'een differed, the founders of the four madhahib differed, right? The most correct opinion is that the borrower, the one actually who received the money, is the one who is responsible for paying zakatul mal on that money, as long as he keeps that money in his ownership, in his possession, for one complete year. Now the lender, the creditor, the one who gave the money, is not supposed to pay zakat because he does not have an access to that money. He does not have an access to that money. So the borrower actually is the responsible party. If the borrower, received the money, spend the money, then there is no money to worry about to pay zakah or not. Any kind of monthly payment that you're involved on, you pay zakah for your, you pay a mortgage for your mortgage company. You pay $2,000 for the mortgage. You pay another $500 for the car, another $500 for the furniture, another $500 for the utensils, for the appliances, whatever the payment. Everything that is due, within that month of Ramadan, then it is deductible. Anything that is not due, then it is not. If you ended up having $100,000 zakatable money, and you owe the mortgage company $100,000, you cannot say, I'm just break even for this year because the loan is equivalent to the zakatable money. That could be correct only in one case: if you decide to pay off that outstanding balance to the mortgage company. If that is the case, then yes, you are absolutely right. You are zakah exempt. However, you have to honor your word. You said that this is a loan that I'm gonna pay, right? If you're gonna pay, then you have to pay it. Go ahead and pay off that loan, and you will definitely be waived from paying zakat al-mal. But if you do not have a plan to pay that loan, then you are miscalculating, right? This $100,000 in our example will be due within the next 15, 20 years, right? If you want to consider the debts for the next 20 years, why do not you, using the same logic, why do not you consider paying zakah on the potential income for the next 20 years? So it's either or. And since you are not willing to pay zakat al-mal on the potential income for the next 20 years, then whatever is not due now and due within the 20 years to come is not to be taken into consideration. To keep it simple, whatever is payable, whatever is due on the zakat due date, you put it aside. Even if you have to pay the IRS, you are not, done yet with your income tax for that year. You put aside that amount to pay to the IRS. There is another personal loan that you have to pay. Put it aside. As I said, maybe $2,000-3,000 for the mortgage company. Put it aside. Everything that is due, put it aside. Put it aside. And the net amount, if you still have $4,500 or more, then you have to pay zakat al-mal. Merchants and business people are not supposed to go with what is called the invoice value to determine the value of the assets that they have, like the groceries, the chips, and the snack that they have in their grocery store. Do not go with the invoice value, how much you paid for that snack. Do not go with the retail value, how much you are asking for, because none of those two different standards is accurate. You go with the wholesale market value. Wholesale market value means if you do not have all those commodities, merchandise, groceries in your grocery store, how much you are willing to pay, to the supplier or to the wholesaler to buy all what you have in your shelves, right? In the zakat due date, or in the lot if you are a car dealer, right? That amount reflects the wholesale market value. If you are to go to the auction today, to buy all these cars that you have already in your lot, how much you are willing to pay for them? What is their market value? If their market value is $72,000, then you have to pay zakat on the 72. Do not pay zakat on 100,000 because this is the retail value. This is what you are looking for. You might get it and you might not. Agricultural products are zakatable, as I said. Livestock are the same. Zakat recipients, الفقراء, the needy individuals, المساكين, needy individuals. Difference between al-faqir and al-miskin. Some said that al-faqir is the one who makes money, but his income is insufficient, while al-miskin is the one who does not make any money. Some said al-faqir is the one who does not mind asking others publicly, asking for sadaqah, while al-miskin is the one actually who does not ask for sadaqah. Whether you go with whatever definition of al-faqir and al-miskin you might have, make sure that you satisfy those needy individuals in your community before you consider or even entertain the idea of sending your money to a different organization or to send it overseas. Al-amiluna alayha are the zakat workers. They do, deserve a certain, percentage from the zakat money based on whatever is sufficient for them, whatever is needed for them. If someone holds a degree in IT, and if he works in corporate America, he will be making $80,000 a year. If you want to hire him in Islamic Relief or Zakat Foundation or Life for Relief or ICNA Relief, do not pay him $40,000, pay him $70,000. This is actually the fair income value for that particular individual. That particular individual can take from Zakat al-Mal up to $70,000 a year, because this is like his regular payment or average payment if he is to work in corporate America. مؤلفة قلوبهم are the new Muslims, new reverts or new converts, whether they are leaders, followed by others, whether they are like stranded or estranged Muslims by their family members because of becoming Muslims. Just make sure that المؤلفة قلوبهم are Muslims. Although this is something that is not agreed upon. Some madhahib actually say that yes, non-Muslims, potential Muslims, can take from zakat al-mal. If you ask me, I would say no. We collect zakah from Muslims, so it's fair enough to pay it back to Muslims. You can pay your non-Muslim friends or neighbors or needy individuals in your society from your charity, from your sadaqah, but stay away from zakat al-mal. For riqab, those on bondage nowadays, captives and slaves. Al-gharimin, the debt-ridden. If someone actually, or the debtor must be in need for that financial aid, if he makes enough money that makes him able to, pay for his own loan, then he should not ask. And number two, the debt was incurred because of lawful expenses, right? Something that is legitimate. And number three, the debt is due immediately. If those three conditions are met, then al-gharim, or the debt-ridden, can ask, for zakat al-mal. Fi sabilillah, traditionally speaking, this is one of the categories, okay? Traditionally speaking, this category was designated for the volunteers among the mujahideen, okay, those who used to go on expeditions and jihad purposes, of course, legitimate jihad activities with the Prophet ﷺ. They were giving money, but linguistically speaking, okay, and even fiqh-wise, there is no straightforward evidence that restricts or limits fi sabilillah to be only for the mujahideen, because the Prophet ﷺ is the one who called like the jihad with education, with da'wah, jihad like the physical one, jihad with money is counted as jihad. Even in the Quran, yujahiduna fi sabilillahi bi amwalihim wa anfusihim. Okay, jahidu bi amwalikum, apply jihad physical and financial. So even if you insist that fi sabilillah means jihad itself has different kinds. Prophet ﷺ said, Jahidul mushrikina, fight the polytheists. Of course, he was referring to a certain segment of the polytheists who were in active war, okay, and harassment with the Muslim community. Not every single mushrik in the street is subject to fight. This is absolutely incorrect. Of course, those who only fight you with your wealth, Jahidul mushrikina bi amwalikum wa anfusikum, with your lives, وألسنتكم, with your tongues. Okay, someone brought a camel and he said, Ya Rasul, I want to put it في سبيل الله, like I want to donate it. قال ضعه في الحج فإن الحج في سبيل الله. Okay, you can designate that camel for Hajj purposes, which means that if someone wants to perform Hajj but he does not have a ride, then he can take that camel for Hajj purposes and just bring it back to the Baytul Mal, right? So the Prophet ﷺ is the one who considered al-Hajj fi sabilillah. Prophet ﷺ is the one who considered, the jihad through education as a kind of jihad with money as a kind of jihad. And that's why contemporary fiqh councils, starting the Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League, who issued a fatwa back in 1405, okay, followed by European Council of Fatwa and Research, our sister organization, followed by our own organization, the Assembly Muslim Jurists of America. We all are in agreement that any kind of legitimate da'wah activities, right? Anything that establishes Islam in the society, whether it is masjid, whether it is Islamic school, Islamic university, you name it. Like here in the US, ISNA, ICNA, MAS, Muslim Legal Fund of America. Okay, your local masjid, Masjid Istiqlal, is definitely an eligible zakat recipient. Okay, you can confidently pay zakat al-mal for the construction of your masjid, for the parking lot of your masjid, for the expansion of your masjid, for the operation of your masjid, as long as there is a need for that money. If the sadaqah and the donation and the tabarru'at and the charity the masjid receives are insufficient, to cover the expenses of the masjid, then the floor actually is widely open to receive zakatul mal, and pay it, to your own masjids. Ibn Sabil is the wayfarer, is the one who is stranded or stranded by circumstances. The contemporary application of fi sabilillah is to say that the refugees and the political asylees nowadays in the US are Ibn Sabil. We do have some people who came from Bangladesh, for example, right? From different parts of the world, from Iraq, from Syria, from Libya. Because of the civil war, because of the turmoil and the unrest there, they just migrated, or they brought through the United Nations to the USA here. Back home, they might be wealthy individuals, but here in the US, they do not have an access to their wealth back home, right? So technically speaking, they are not fuqara. They do have money under their name back home, assets, wealth, properties, businesses, right? But they do not have an access to that wealth. That's why they are called Ibn Sabil. you cannot pay your zakat to rich individuals, those who are like able to work, devotees who refuse to work, like just staying for ibadah purposes, renouncers of Islam, of course, non-Muslims, according to the strongest opinion to my knowledge, ascendants and descendants, your parents, your grandparents cannot take zakat, your children and grandchildren cannot take zakat, because there is a mutual, like, financial sponsorship responsibility between parents and their kids, right? Anything else from your family members is eligible. You can definitely give your zakah to your siblings, brothers, sisters, what do you call it, nephews, nieces, paternal uncles, maternal uncles, aunts from both sides. Any one of those actually is an eligible zakah recipient. Maybe one more exception here, the wife. You cannot give your zakat to your wife because you are financially responsible, for the expenses of your wife, right? So you cannot give her from zakat al-mal.
Shaman,
Yes, sir.
we are approaching 1 hour now.
Okay. I'm gonna stop, inshallah, and open the floor for question and answer. The floor is yours. Tfadl.
So brother and sister, alhamdulillah, we have heard the lecture for about 1 hour, and subhanallah, there are a lot of important information, really interesting information, but because there are too many of them, I'm myself confused. But there are a couple of questions already submitted through the chat. So some of the question had already been answered by the Sheikh. So I'm just gonna read those questions quickly, and not all of them, just to acknowledge that we read the question if already answered by Shahmain. Okay, the first question is the how to calculate the money that coming in, or the salary on the nisab, because we don't get it at the same time. We get it at a different month. So, but it already been answered by Sheikh Main, that you just counted everything. For example, if you use Ramadan as the reference for 1 year, you count everything as when Ramadan comes. Okay, number two, here, this is the question on the inheritance. The inheritance in this particular question is about gold, but I think it's probably also apply to any inheritance. The question is it zakatable? And if it's gold, is it also 2.5% for inheritance?
So someone inherited gold?
Yes.
Yes, it takes the same rule of the cash money that you have. Okay. But the only difference here is that if it is an inheritance, and you do have another source of income, then you establish a new hawl for that inheritance. Okay. For example, you make $100,000 a year from your profession, from your business, from your work at a company. So there is a hawl, like a fiscal lunar year, for that income. Usually you mark your calendar for the beginning of Ramadan, right? Although technically speaking, the hawl starts from the day where you accumulate or constitute a nisab. Once you put together $4,500, that's the beginning of your hawl. That's the beginning of your, technically speaking. In the real life, it's really hard to remember which day in the year you accumulated nisab, and that's why we just take it easy, and we set the beginning of the month of Ramadan as our zakat due date. Okay. Well, let's say, for example, that you received the inheritance money, okay, in the month of Rajab, okay, in the month of Jumad al-Thani. Then you establish a new hawl for that particular money. Okay. If it is in Safar, then you wait until Safar of next year. Why? because this is a kind of irregular income. It does not belong, okay, to the same like major source of income that you have, right? So you establish a new howl. But to answer the question, is it zakatable or not? Yes, it is, right? It takes exactly the same rules of the cash money that you pay zakat on. No.
Just short questions from me. For the bonus that you get from work, or even stimulus money that you get, you paid 2.5%, or there is a certain different rules
Yes.
percentage wise.
Yes. This is a kind of income. A kind
Okay,
of income. I
still
mean, just take the
2.5%.
check, spend the check. If you still have some money left over in the month of Ramadan, you just pay zakat on it. Although this
Okay.
is not taxable, by the way, but it is zakatable.
Okay, because I heard that if it's a gift, then it's the zakah is different percentage. It's not 2.5%.
I don't think so. I do not see any difference between the bonus, the gift, the income tax return, the stimulus check. Everything actually is at the end of the day is cash money. Cash money actually is zakatable based on 2.5%. Allah.
Okay, just okay. For those of you who would like to listen to the recording, I did not record it on Zoom, but we broadcast it on Facebook, Masjid Istiqlal Facebook. So it's get recorded automatically. So you can just replay, go for there and then replay the recording if you want to listen to it. Next question. This is regarding the reward money that we usually get from from credit card company, from credit card company. Is that halal money?
Oh,
And
that's a non-zakah issue, right?
well, I mean, if it's halal, then is it zakah? Zakatable?
Well, is it halal money or not? Yes, it is. Okay? The cash back or the points that you receive from through using your credit card is halal, because what's haram here is to pay to the lender more than what you have borrowed. You borrowed 100, you pay it 105 or 107, that's haram. But in this case, when you benefit from the cash back, you borrow $100 and you pay it only 92 or 93. So you pay less than what you have borrowed. And that's halal. That's completely the opposite of riba. Now, is this money zakatable? Yes. I mean, it's a kind of saving, a kind of bonus that you have received. Yes, you add it up to the virtual pool of money that you have and just pay zakat accordingly.
Okay, yes, I think that's there are a couple other questions, but you already answered all the question. Now I have another question, sir. On stock trading, I know you mentioned that if you don't do actively doing, like for example daily trader, then you only pay for the profit, not the capital.
Right.
But what if you ask the money manager to manage your money? I mean, then the money managers trade, like doing the active trading, but you yourself, you don't.
Well, if the stocks are traded in the stock market, whether by yourself or by somebody else, then the principal or the market value of the account that you have is zakatable in full, because the stocks are traded. I mean, you do not have to trade them by yourself. I mean, you are doing so through somebody else. Like if you have an account with like a ZAD fund or Zaki Financial or Atina, for example, if they invest for you, okay, it means that somebody else is doing the business on your behalf, and thus, yes, the principal and the dividend both are zakatable.
Okay, yes, is another question. The under IMC, we have another organization that manage zakah money, but specifically for a new convert. Now, in dealing with that, I mean, I know you mentioned that it's allowed to take certain percentage for the admin.
Zakat workers, right?
But is there any guidance of what percentage can we take from the zakah money? I mean, 5%, 10%, just for the admin work.
Wallah, there is no specific standard. The only standard is bil ma'ruf, whatever considered reasonable. So if a certain organization collects zakah and distribute it on behalf of the zakah payers and distribute it on behalf of the or send it like to the zakah recipients. If they charge here in the US, I would say 30% or more, that is way too much. If they charge 10%, that's very reasonable. If you want to make a very simple math, akhi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designated 8 different categories. Although, I mean, this is not a must, by the way, but let me just do the math. 8 divided 100, that is well, I think I did it wrong. If you divide 100 divided by 8, that is 12.5%. I mean, this is if you want to go like equally, and you give the same share or equal share for each different category, and you have $100,000, then 12,500 should go to the العاملون عليها, the zakah workers. But again, I mean, this is not a must. Okay, whatever is well known as reasonable would be fine. I would say maybe nowadays up to 15%, for the organization that runs the zakah work would be reasonable. Allah.
Okay, jazakallah. Okay, there is another question coming. So I have an extra house in Indonesia, alhamdulillah, which was inherited from my mom, but I don't rent it, only for close relative, but homeless. Is it zakatable, the house itself?
No, if it is not for rent, if it is not for sale, like completely like locked for your personal use, or you open it for some guests or some needy individuals to live in it for free, you are not run it as a business, then it is zakah exempt. Yes, it's not for sale.
And the same goes with land.
And the same with land. I mean, this is called the long-term investment. You bought a piece of land, it's not active in the market, it's not for sale, it's a long-term investment. You bought it 10-15 years ago with the intention of putting it in the market whenever your kids go to college, so you can you can sponsor them, you can pay their tuition fees. As long as the land is not active in the market, then it is not zakat. No?
But Sheikh, what's the difference between that extra property that we have with the, for example, the gold that we have? They both are extra property.
Gold, you mean jewelry?
The jewelry, I mean, yeah, jewelry.
Yeah, the jewelry, we need to ask, is it for the personal use of your spouse or not? If it is for the personal use, then it's exactly like analogous to the house that your wife lives in, and the clothes that she has, and the car that she drives, and the furniture that she uses. Jewelry actually is no different, right?
But this is not for personal use. I mean, this is extra. I mean, if, for example, people save or buy I don't know, this gold, bar of gold, and they keep it, I don't know, in the bank or whatever for investment.
No, that is different. Jewelry is a legitimate personal belonging for females in Islam. I mean, they need to have their own jewelry, exactly like we men have clothes and have other things. Jewelry for females is a very legitimate personal items that they use. So we cannot consider every single piece of jewelry as a luxury. No, they are not. So whatever is counted as the average in that particular society is zakah exempt.
Okay. Yes,
And this is, by the way, according to the Shafi'i school of thought, which is the madhab of Malaysia and Indonesia as well. And back home, actually, in Jordan, most of us are Shawafi. I'm a Shafi'i by background, although I do not, commit myself to the madhab 100%. But this is according to the madhab that jewelry is not zakatable.
Okay. Another question coming in here. Who is considered poor in Islam? In USA, some poor have 2 cars but does not own any house. I mean, is this person considered poor?
The poor individual, akhi, is the one who needs money for his or her legitimate expenses, okay, more than what he makes. If I make 5,000 every single month, 5,000, and I legitimately need $7,000 for the rent of my house, for the livelihood expenses, for the tuition of my kids, tuition fees, other expenses, healthcare, expenses. I need $7,000. Then technically speaking, I'm a faqir. Although I make money, but what I make actually is less than what I need, and that need actually has to be a legitimate one. I mean, we're not talking about leading an extravagant lifestyle. I mean, someone is paying $5,000 monthly payment for the mortgage of his house. He has 7 bedrooms while he needs only 2 or 3. I mean, that's way too much. So it has to be taken on a case by case basis. But to answer the question, whosoever needs more than what he makes income is a faqir.
Yes, so another question coming, Sheikh, regarding wealth in investment account, is there a clear-cut boundary between active and passive?
Well, I think it is obvious. Yani if you always watch the news and you trade and you buy and you sell, either by yourself or you ask somebody else to do the business on your behalf, then you are active in the market. If you have like a simple investment account in the stock market with Azad or with Amana or with Atina or Zaki Financial, it means that somebody else is doing the business on your behalf. Those mutual fund and investment companies do not sleep on the stocks. I mean, they are absolutely not happy with the dividend that they make, and that's why they keep trading. Okay, whenever the price goes up, they sell what they have. Whenever the price goes down, they buy more. Okay, versus somebody else who's just does not buy or sell except occasionally, maybe once, twice, 3, 4 times a year, but this is not his common practice. So that is the standard.
Okay. Another questions coming. Shehmain, you touch base briefly to 401k fund by giving example of 450,000 net zakatable, for example. Basically, this 401k money to me is still a virtual wealth. The issue is 2.5% of, for example, 450,000 is still a big amount, 11,000. That I might not have that much real wealth to pay the zakah on. In that case, is it Islamically permissible to pay zakah mal on installment?
Let's distinguish between 2 things. Okay, we need to agree that whatever accessible in your 401k is zakatable. Now, if you agree with me, we can go to the next step: how to secure the money, how to pay the money. If I do not have enough money for to pay my zakah in Ramadan, I have more than one option. Maybe I can make a payment plan and pay monthly. Okay, maybe I can liquidate some of my assets. I can sell some of the assets that I have and pay zakah. I would highly recommend that you liquidate some of the assets and you pay your zakah, in order for you not to put yourself on the spot, as they say, and find yourself next year unable of paying the zakah, going through the same challenge. You can make a payment plan for your next year's zakah from now. if I know that my zakah approximately every year is $6,000 every year, I can start paying $500 from now, okay, on behalf of the zakah of the next year, like an early payment, right? So if I commit myself to that $500 every month, by next Ramadan, I have to pay only 500 because I already prepaid my zakah, and the prepayment of the zakah actually is permissible.
Okay. Yeah, this is, this question is from me. I'm still a little confused with this, the either 401k or another, or like a pension plan, for example. So say, for example, the 401k or pension plan, you are vested, I don't know, 50%, for example, meaning that you can withdraw 50%, but you don't need it now, so you don't withdraw 50%. You don't withdraw anything at all. So that 50% that you're eligible to withdraw, is that zakatable, or only, or you pay zakah only on the money that you withdraw?
No, you do not have to physically withdraw. You pay zakah on the withdrawable amount, even if you did not touch it, as long as you have full authority to access to it, to withdraw it, then it is zakatable. You might choose not to withdraw it, which is actually the right thing to do. Do not withdraw your 401k before the due date, before the reaching the age of retirement, or Allah forbids, in case of any medical emergency or something. So do not withdraw your 401k. Okay, do your math as if you have withdrawn your 401k. So it's a pure theoretical math without proceeding with the decision of withdrawing the money. Did I answer the question?
Yes, that's very, very clear. So let me see if there is any other questions. Okay, there is one question. This is one question. Let me read it, because I'm trying to understand it. It will take some time, so let me just read it so we'll try to understand together. So the question is it permissible to pay zakah in advance for the next 7 to 8 years? If you already just answer it. For example, if we want to help build a small house for a poor family, approximately say $20,000 US. This is calculated zakah for about 7 to 8 years. If it is not possible, what's the solution in this case? Is it permissible if we work with a bank who would pay 20,000 to build that small house, and we will pay zakah every year or month to the bank?
Well,
pay zakah to the bank? Why?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a very particular case that needs to be discussed individually with the inquirer. But to answer the fiqh question, can I prepay my zakah for the next 1 or 2 years or more? Yes, you can. If you assess that this individual is in desperate need for building a house, and the house actually costs $20,000, your zakah is only 5,000. Can you pay him or her $20,000 with the intention of paying your zakah for the next 4 years, right? The answer is yes, as long as that person is a Muslim, number one, is in need, number two, number three, you can afford paying your zakah in advance for the next 4 years, go for it. Why not? In fact, the Prophet ﷺ asked his uncle, Al-Abbas radiallahu anhu, to pay his zakah, and he did actually pay it 2 years in advance. Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, paid his zakah 2 years in advance. So there is no ceiling here. You can pay your zakah 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance. But it's good to document, because 5 years actually is like a big period of time. So Allah forbids, if something happened, at least your family members, after you, would know exactly how much you paid out of how much, right? So just keep everything like documented.
Okay. I have two questions, but you have already answered the question. Just a confirmation, so that to make sure I got it right. First, about the masjid money that is invested. So in this particular case, a Masjid Istiqlal have money which is invested in the stock market, and so since the money gained from that investment, that's not zakatable, right? Because this is for the masjid. Is that correct?
Yes. The principal and the dividend, the profit that you make, nothing else is zakat, because this is like a public property, public money. It is, it is for the Indonesian Muslim community in Houston. It's not a private business. It is just for the masjid. This is a kind of investment or endowment, whatever you want to call it, for the sake of the masjid. The beneficiary is the masjid, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Then it is zakat exempt, of course.
Okay. And other questions. The zakat, and I think you have said that Masjid Istiqlal in this case can use the zakat money for the construction purpose. And also I said before that we have an effort also to distribute zakat specifically for the new Muslim, the mu'allaf. Now in this case, when we collect the zakat, should we clearly state it to the donor or the payer that, okay, we accept your zakat, but we are going to only use it for the masjid, for example, or we are only going to use it for the mu'allaf, for the new convert, and we are not going to use it for anything else?
Well, you can do it the other way around. You can make yourself clear through your website, through your brochures, through the announcement that you make for your community, that we, the leadership or the management of Masjid Istiqlal, we do not mind using zakah money for construction, for expansion, for operation expenses of the masjid. We do pay zakatul mal to new Muslims. So just to make sure that our potential donors know what plan or what kind of fiqh madhab that we adopt. For more transparency, if someone does not feel comfortable paying his or her zakah for masjid construction, maybe you can make more than $1, okay, or more than one bank account. If you want your money to go exclusively for construction, here is the donation box. If you want it for like general expenses, operation, here is a box. Only for al-mu'allafati qulubuhum, okay, here is the box. I mean, you can give your community members as many options as they prefer to keep that transparency, okay, and integrity in dealing with them. Otherwise, you just keep it simple. I'm going to tell your community that the person in charge of Masjid Istiqlal, I do pay zakatul mal to the masjid construction. Just make it clear. So whosoever pays zakah knows that his money might be redirected to the masjid, might be going to the operation. It's up to the management of the masjid.
Okay, jazakallah khair. So, but the unlimited question about zakah, especially for particular question regarding to each of us. Probably somewhere in the future we could do a like a shaka workshop. We'll figure out about this. But for now, I think the time is up. It's already 10:30. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Main. And then, if you please, we would like to ask you to to close the halaqah this morning with dua, Sheikh, please.
Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. And with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we finish this class for today. We ask him subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us from whatever we have learned and to teach us whatever we do not know about our deen. We ask him subhanahu wa ta'ala to extend our life until we experience the month of Ramadan and to help us worshipping him accordingly in the month of Ramadan. We ask him subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the sincerity in our hearts and the brotherhood and the sisterhood and the ukhuwah fillah subhanahu wa ta'ala between all of us. We ask him subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us being the servants of his deen in this society. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in health and in wealth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide our kids to the right path and make them qurratu aynin and pleasure for our eyes and hearts. Allahumma ameen. Sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve, and it's always a pleasure to meet with my brothers and sisters in the Indonesian and Malaysian community. We'll stay in touch, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. So we are going to close the meeting now, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.